The Seattle Seahawks were once a team destined to be called a dynasty, but after winning a Super Bowl during the 2013 season, they failed to win another. And after that, the Seahawks underachieved and plenty of relationships were ruined. But in today's video, we are going to be adding one NFL legend to the Seattle Seahawks until they win another Super Bowl. The first season started off with Russell Wilson returning to Seattle in a Broncos uniform and dominating his former team. The rest of the season did not go as planned, finishing with a 7-10 record and missing out on a playoff spot. Geno Smith had a decent season, throwing for 4,200 yards and 26 touchdowns. But rookie running back Kenneth Walker had himself a really good season, going for over 1,000 yards and had 10 touchdowns. And just like in real life, the Kansas City Chiefs are Super Bowl winners and Jalen Hurts wins NFL MVP. After every season, we are going to spin a wheel of NFL teams and take one NFL legend from that team. The first wheel spin lands on the Los Angeles Rams, and we have a few good choices here. NFL legends that play for the LA Rams include Jack Youngblood, Jackie Slater, Kurt Warner, Deacon Jones, and many others. With the lack of production from the defensive line this year, I decided to go with Deacon Jones. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame in the 1980s, and he was one of the best defensive players of his era. Before heading into the 2023 season, the Seattle Seahawks drafted offensive tackle Paris Johnson Jr. and cornerback Christian Gonzalez in the first round, which should drastically improve their team this year. The offense heading into season number 2 remains the same, with Geno Smith leading the way at quarterback, Kenneth Walker up to an 88 overall, with Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf being the primary target. Deacon Jones is a 92 overall superstar with really good stats, including 97 power moves. But the rest of the defense remains the same, with Adams and Diggs leading the secondary. In this season opener against the Eagles, Kenneth Walker starts off strong, scoring on his first possession of the game. But unfortunately for the Seahawks, the Eagles come back to win the game 31-27. And the rest of the season ended in disappointment, with the Seahawks only winning 5 games and obviously missing out on a playoff spot. Geno Smith had another decent season, throwing for 4,500 yards and 35 touchdowns, while Walker was able to rush for over 1,000 yards once again, and he scored 10 touchdowns. Deacon Jones' first season, he had 14.5 sacks. The Eagles went on to win the Super Bowl, but to my surprise, Kirk Cousins won NFL MVP. The Seahawks decided to draft tight end Brock Bowers with the 4th overall pick, giving Geno Smith an extra target this season. To make this a little bit more difficult, we will be alternating between one defensive legend and one offensive legend on the wheel spin. Spinning the wheel of NFL teams, it lands on the Minnesota Vikings. And since we have to go with an offensive legend, we can choose quarterback Fran Tarkenton, who was one of the best quarterbacks in Vikings history, Adrian Pearson, who is one of the best running backs in Viking history, or we could go with one of my favorite players and one of the best wide receivers in the entire NFL history, Randy Moss. And even though our wide receiver core is amazing, I'm deciding to go with Randy Moss. After bringing in one of the best wide receivers in NFL history, our offense is looking really good, with Brock Bowers at tight end number 1, Lockett and Metcalf behind Randy Moss, Kenneth Walker taking another leap to a 91 overall, but unfortunately, Geno Smith took a little step back, going to a 76 overall. The defense remains the same as last year, with Deacon Jones up to a 95 overall and Tariq Woolen up to an 84 overall. In the season opener against the Vikings, Randy Moss had a big game, scoring 2 touchdowns and blowing up the Vikings 45-27. Through the midseason, Geno Smith started the season strong with a pass rating of 103.4, and Randy Moss has 4 touchdowns so far. But unfortunately, their season went downhill, losing majority of their games after their bye week and missing out on a playoff spot. On a more positive note, Brock Bowers led all of our receivers with 1,000 yards, and our other rookie defensive player, Shamar Turner, had 12.5 sacks. A few of our players did get selected to the Pro Bowl in Brock Bowers, Deacon Jones, and Quandre Diggs. The New York Jets are your Super Bowl champions, and for some reason, 46-year-old Tom Brady won NFL MVP. The Seahawks had a pretty decent draft, selecting Kareem Griffin out of Louisville, who was a 78 overall. After adding Deacon Jones and Randy Moss to the Seahawks, the wheel lands on the New York Giants, and this might be the easiest choice in the entire video. One of the greatest defensive players in NFL history, Lawrence Taylor. Going into our 4th season, Geno Smith is now 34 years old and he's down to a 75 overall. It might be time for Seahawks management to start moving on from Geno Smith and maybe take a quarterback in this year's draft. But luckily for the Seahawks fans, the offense is looking better than ever. Randy Moss continues to lead the receiver group, and Kenneth Walker continues to progress and is now up to a 93 overall. And the defense is looking a lot scarier now with Lawrence Taylor on the team. He had 132.5 sacks in his 13 seasons in the NFL, and the rest of the the defense remains the same, with Jamal Adams up to a 92 overall and Deacon Jones up to a 96. Seattle took on the Rams in the season opener, and as you can see, the defense was able to get a lot of pressure on the quarterback. And after the 2025 season, the Seahawks just barely missed a playoff spot, finishing with the same record as the Niners, but failing to win the division. This was a devastating season for Seahawks fans, because there was so much optimism going into this season. Geno Smith had a solid season, throwing for 41 touchdowns, and Kenneth Walker had 1,500 rushing yards and 12 touchdowns. Deacon Jones and Lawrence Taylor finished with 32.5 sacks combined, but the Cowboys ended up defeating the New England Patriots in the Super Bowl, and Dak wins Super Bowl MVP. After that underachieving season, the Seahawks have added Deacon Jones, Randy Moss, and Lawrence Taylor to the team, and we have another wheel spin here. Heading into Season 5, the Seattle Seahawks can select an offensive legend from the Jacksonville Jaguars. They have a few solid options, but none better than Hall of Fame offensive tackle Tony Baselli. Adding him to the O-line is really going to help whoever our play caller is going into the season. The Seattle Seahawks decided to draft quarterback Marco Truman with the 16th pick in the draft, and you won't believe what happens next in this season. But for now, Geno Smith will be the starting quarterback, and it will be Truman who has to try to win that job throughout the season. The rest of the offense remains the same, but as you can see, Brock Bowers is up to an 88 overall, and Tyler Lockett is now down to an 83 as he gets a little bit older. The defense has plenty of elite talent, with Lawrence Taylor leading the linebackers, Jamal Adams and Tariq Woolen leading the secondary, and Deacon Jones in charge of the D-line. The Seahawks are now up to an 87 overall with an 87 offense and an 87 defense. The Seahawks start the season with a 5-1 record, leading the NFC West. But there is a huge change happening on the roster, with Marco Truman has taken over Geno Smith's starting quarterback role, and he has already thrown 2 touchdown passes on 28 attempts. And after simming the rest of the season, Marco Truman led the Seahawks to their first playoff game in this video. On their first possession of the game, Truman was able to find Brock Bowers for their first playoff touchdown. Moments later, Randy Moss was able to return a punt for 89 yards and a touchdown to put the Seahawks up 14. The Seahawks were able to easily defeat Brock Purdy and the Saints 38-6. They went ahead and defeated the Lions in the divisional round, but ended up falling short to the reigning Super Bowl champions, the Dallas Cowboys, 20-13, and now their season is over. The Chiefs ended up winning the Super Bowl, but Lawrence Taylor was named Defensive Player of the Year. Quandre Diggs decided to hang up the cleats and retire from the NFL. This is going to leave a massive hole in our secondary. We need to see which defensive legend we can now add to the team, and it lands on the Seattle Seahawks. They have had some incredible players in franchise history, but let's bring back a member of the Legion of Boom. Cam Chancellor is known for his hard-hitting play, and he fits alongside perfectly Jamal Adams. Heading into our 6th season, Bam Bam Cam Chancellor will captain the defense along with Lawrence Taylor and Deacon Jones. The offense is still looking great with Truman as our starting quarterback, but unfortunately Tyler Lockett was cut in the offseason. The team is now up to an 89 overall, and there is no excuse to make a deep playoff run this year. And they did just that, finishing with the best record in the NFL, going 14-3, and have a first-round bye in the playoffs. Truman had a great first season, throwing for 4,100 yards and 48 touchdowns. Walker continued his dominance, rushing for 1,200 yards, while Randy Moss was able to rack up 18 touchdowns on the year. Lawrence Taylor and Deacon Jones continued to dominate with 12 sacks each. The defense was ranked 4th in the entire NFL because of them. The Seahawks defeated the Lions in the divisional round, and then they went on to knock out the Bucks in the NFC Championship game. Seattle Seahawks now take on Bryce Young and the Houston Texans in the Super Bowl. Bryce Young was able to get his team down the field, and Reggie Gilliam was able to punch it in from the 1-yard line. Marco Truman and the Seahawks were able to answer back with a 10-yard touchdown pass to Brock Bowers. And after a huge defensive stop by the Seahawks, fullback Eric All was able to punch it in from the 1-yard line, putting them up 7. But just before half, the Texans were able to score a field goal, and the Seahawks led 17-13. Bryce Young was able to work his team down the field and then find Jawan Walker for a 19-yard touchdown, taking the lead. Unfortunately, they managed to score again with just 3 minutes to go, and now the offense needs to score. And luckily for Seahawks fans, Randy Moss comes up big, scoring a touchdown with just 2 minutes to go. Down 2 with a minute and a half to go, the Seahawks defense holds them to a 4th down. No timeouts. Truman leads his team down the field, and they were able to kick a 3 to win the Super Bowl. And after adding 5 NFL legends, the Seattle Seahawks are finally able to lift the Lombardi Trophy once again. If you enjoyed watching this video, you should definitely check out where I put a team of NFL Hall of Famers up against the NFL's best. You can click it right up here.